Okay, I'm about to start a game of Lords of the Sierra Madre. This is it's one of those strange games for me. I really love the idea behind it, but one of the feelings I have is it doesn't play quite up to the idea behind it. Um, but the idea is so good that I have left it with a rating of around 9, well, with a 9 on my system, and I think uh, I think it may deserve that, even if it falls a little flat of what is expected when you read the rules and look at how it's going to play. This is a Phil Eklund game, his Sierra Madre Games Company. I am amazed by, I mean, it's very innovative. It's completely different from anything else I had seen at its time. Some things have copied from it, and Eklund himself made at least a couple of games that are based very much on the same system. I picked one up, which is Lords of the Renaissance, which I actually think is a slightly better playing game, but the components are crap. The components to this are quite good, especially for what at the time was a pretty small startup. I think this is the second edition of the game. I think the first edition was put out as cheaply as possible. And it caught a lot of attention and allowed a sort of designer's edition. I've been kind of hesitant since buying the second game to buy anything else of his, although it looks like the quality of the components has gone up, and I really should investigate some of his stuff because obviously he has a real grasp on making very different games from what anyone else is making, and that's what I see from the reviews of some of the others and what I've seen when I glance through the rules. Nothing caught me quite as much as this and Lords of the Renaissance, though, in terms of flavor. So, the basic idea of the game, interestingly enough, I had a recent rant, and maybe this is what kind of triggered me into thinking about playing this, about whether or what constitutes victory conditions. In this game, there's a formal victory condition set. You want to end the game with the most cash kind of stashed away in your New York bank account. However, even in the game itself, they specify that players are going to have their own victory conditions in this one. Some people will want a military victory. Some will want to be president of the United States or president of Mexico, even if that doesn't last as long as being president of the United States, because you'll end up dead. But there are many different goals in this game. Being president is a way to make a lot of money. So it's not necessarily going to hinder you from losing the base victory conditions. But if you fail to win the base victory conditions and you were president, well, you got some bragging rights, I think, at the least. It's hard to become president. I've seen it happen a few times, though. I'd say the game is something of a cross between Junta and Silverton, really. I mean, in a lot of ways, it's add military and political considerations to Silverton, and you pretty much have this game. Silverton, though, is also kind of an off-the-edge game, so out of the mainstream. So, yeah, I mean, it feels similar to some of the rail-building games, although the concentration is more on getting mines, getting other industries available. You want to collect a lot of cash. Unlike Junta, you have these economic opportunities to collect cash. It's not a purely political game. In fact, the political side of it usually comes down to cutting deals between players not to molest one another with their military or to bribe one another for the allowance to exist. Once the military gets on the map, and these are the first things usually bid on. Over here I have cards for some of them. Once the U.S., especially this Mexican military, because it can just walk into an establishment and tax it. and walk away with a gold. That's not the player's money. It's, the commander's money. But if two players can come to an agreement, hey, I've got 2 properties in your territory that you could tax for a gold each turn. Let's split that. I'll give you a gold each turn so that you don't leave me alone, but you also protect me from bandits. That works fairly well. Bandits can also be a problem in the game. One of the I've noticed they're singularly ineffective, though, because getting weapons into the red counters are bandits and Indians and stuff like that that can just go in and burn property if they want to. And they can be really, really dangerous. The political events or circumstances of the game allow you to maybe declare a revolution, which turns regular military units into rebellion units. That's when things get really ugly. That's when all bets are kind of off if a rebellion starts to happen. I'm going to turn over the first card because it's the beginning of the game. And that's nothing very valuable. It's a military unit for airplanes. There are much, much more valuable things right now. The biggies are buying the Mexican military to protect your own territory or threaten other people's territory. And right now, well, I'm playing 8 players, so almost everything's filled. But the concentration is in Chihuahua. Those are going to be the valuable properties at the beginning of the game. There's some common cards that are always available. I have to go because I'm out of time, believe it or not. I think my memory has gotten smaller. Wow, found out what was wrong with my camera. There was a pile of games videos that I had copied over and as far as I know are correct, but I guess we're in an incorrect state. Anyway, I threw down the bidding for the first round on all the items. The biggest thing that fell, that airplane is not the biggest thing. Slaughter picked that up for $1, figuring it could be useful, and there's nothing better to do right now. But right after that went down, the Chihuahua military went, and every single one of them went for $2, and everybody involved in Chihuahua won at 1 and was willing to pay $2 for it. The loser ended up Hearst. He ended up buying a Sonora Federales unit for $1. The other big decision was the German bought the Rurales over in Sonora for $2 because they defend his plantation. And, it wasn't worth. Other people were definitely willing to pay $1. Nobody was willing to throw 2 in for it because they don't have any guaranteed income down there at this point. It probably would have been worth challenging him. I rolled for people they didn't want to. Some of them didn't have the money. So instead we have and the Federales there ended up in, Green picked one of them up, and who else got one? Oh, yeah. Hearst picked one of them up. And the only other military thing was on the very second thing picked, the Chihuahua police went. Nobody went and bought the Sonora police. I'm not sure why. They're probably worth $1 too. We'll see how that all turns out. But none of the U.S. military or police went. They're so useless comparatively because they're like honest and stuff. So now we're going to continue into the turn. There was no investment capital on that sheet. Profits, nothing comes because it's winter. Only summertime produces hacienda profits. So people only make their money once a year. The only other money that happens is off the cards, the investor capital. Capitalization, that would be improving. Things take a while to mature, pieces of property. So you have to place them several turns in advance and then pay $1 each turn to keep them going, which can be very expensive at the beginning of the game or if you have more than one thing. Mordita, that allows you to play these kind of cool cards. There are only a few available at the beginning of the game. Somebody might want to buy the Tombstone Citizen, the Tombstone Epitaph. Because newspapers are valuable. They raise your main character, his leadership value. And leadership's useful in elections, lawsuits, and obviously in military conflicts. So it was kind of silly for no one to do that. They'll do it next time. And then tactical rounds, and there's a possibility that there's going to be an attempt to tax. We'll see how that falls out. So looking briefly at the situation, Hearst had to buy the newspaper, not just because he's Hearst. It raises his leadership by 1, but the big reason is he doesn't have troops to defend himself over here in Chihuahua. So he must spend every dollar he has every turn. Purple's in a similar situation, Lord Chowdhury, or Cowdhury, whatever his name is. Because his federales cannot race up in time every turn. But he's got a little bit of safety. If he shadows, the other guy with federales there is Don Luis, who's positioned here. If purple shadows the brown ones upward, even if they go first, they can go in and tax purple, but he can tax brown. So they probably are coming to some sort of agreement. Let's just leave each other alone. We got our troops, we're good. You know, we'll keep other people out, and we'll harass Hearst if need be. All right, that's it. So it's spring of 98, and the card for the turn is maximum machine guns, which gave everybody a piece of gold from investors. Nobody had to leave their homes. But it's another military counter. That means there's not a lot of value really to it. It's white, which means you can use it for crimes if you want. But, and for personal defense. It does kind of make it harder because nobody has anything to invest in. There's no big purchase to make. There's the railways, but the railways kind of insist you have a stockpile of money that nobody has. I don't know what the shortest one is in terms of building. 2 quarters probably. I don't think anybody's sitting on anything that cheap though. Cheap one here, there's a 5-quarter one, but that doesn't get you very far. I think you have to get to a city for it to be worth anything. So, yeah, there really aren't a lot of railways. There's a 4-quarter down to El Paso. That's probably worth building if he has some extra money. But for the most part, the railways are, such a money drain for so long that they're a hard purchase, and there's really nothing else to buy with money. You can buy, there's the police and the U.S. troops, which will start to fall because nobody wants to hang on to their money that hard. Might as well get things while they're cheap, I guess. So here we are in summertime, and last turn Bill Green bought the railway that's next to his ranch. It's not going to improve the payout right away. You'd have to buy the next one down. That's Railroad 14. He'd have to buy 13 as well to get to Nogales, and in order to hook up to a real city, and that real city would be Hermosillo, I believe. I think that's the closest and only one nearby. But if he did that, he'd at least be making an extra buck. And have that extra property, which is cool. Since he can protect it, because he moved his federales up towards it, it becomes a reasonable option. This turn's card was Madrista Revolutionaries. That produced no investor income, so everybody's got less money, they're less interested in anything. The only person who really kind of wanted it at all was Hearst, because he has so little. He bought the machine guns and can't bring them into Mexico, but he's considering going all bandit because He's got the the federales and the rurales that are all opposed to him. But he has no money because he has to spend his money every turn. So that's just going to get discarded. And probably nothing's going to happen this turn. Oh, quickly, the thing I forgot to mention, everybody increased their ranch. They invested the profits back in. That's why there's no money. I guess Hearst could have paid his profits for this, but it seems really unworthwhile at this point. The fall card was the Kumaripa Garbanzo bean plantation. This is kind of cool because it actually starts out with a high value, an initial profit of $3 per summer. Hard to read. 3 people bid on it. Slaughter, who can defend it because of his airplane. He could fly the airplane over there and base it there, and that would actually prevent it from being taxed. Hearst, because he has federales over in Sonora, and he was hoping to move there, but he only has $1. And with the capitalization cost and his uncertain financial situation, it didn't seem worth more than 1. And finally, the German von Riddelen, who lives down there. I mean, that's his home. He's got the rurales there. He's got it protected. He didn't want to put $2 on, which he could have actually afforded, because of the capitalization cost. That's something you just don't want to screw around with. So anyway, he gets that in 3/4. It's fall now. So winter, spring, summer. And that'll be the end of 1898. I'll put this all together into one recording.